my business. Big man and witness my musical litmus. Just for your fitness, beg my forgiveness. My records go Guinness, so be my apprentice. Unicorn hacking in Venice, angel investors, my internet tennis. Still criminal till I spill it to finish. Survival the fittest, the digital menace. I'm still in idle the scene, popping them volumes and sipping caffeine. Marshall web packets in a routine that I write to a stream with a proxy between. Embedded radix and word, macros disabled, your boy ain't deterred. Wire transferred, social the teller and teller you heard about the king nerd. I keep it suave on the phone, shut off utilities, black out your home. Cracking the wireless back with a drone, keep the Mac clone, D off the zone. Swat your whole crew with a spoon.
Hello, Lee.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm wrangling with my mic here. Welcome to episode 12 of the Canceled Podcast.
It's a dozen.
1 dozen.
1 dozen.
So we are now in week what of isolation?
Do you
even remember?
I think it's week 9.
Week 9.
I think it's week 9, the beginning of week 9.
But we've started coming a little bit out of isolation. So
A little bit. And, you know, I think that a lot of people are. It's not a tenable situation for people. Granted, be working or socializing, having some sort of normalcy in their life. You can only stay inside for so long.
have you noticed? I've noticed something. I think this is the next thing in cancel culture. I was hoping cancel culture was gone, but it's not gone. I think we're not desperate enough yet for it to be gone. But I did notice that people are shaming people for being outside.
The Stasi.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you need to...
We have our mask Stasi.
Yeah, we have a mask Stasi.
Just like in West Germany.
It's really kind of
Or
ridiculous.
East Germany, sorry.
Because I understand needing to have a mask when you're in proximity to people.
Yeah.
Or if you have a cough or you're sneezing.
Or
right?
if you're going into a store or something to pick up stuff.
Right. Like
Yeah.
if you're around people who are potentially vulnerable, but they're stopping people and yelling at them and sometimes even ticketing or arresting them because they're in a park by themselves, nowhere near anybody.
Yeah.
Like not within 100 feet of another human being.
There was video a few days ago coming out of New York to where a bunch of cops basically, I think were arresting one guy for not wearing a mask on the sidewalk, which I don't know if you know this, but it's not a fucking crime to not wear a mask.
No.
Just because a governor or a mayor issues an edict does not make it law. In order for it to be law, you're going to have to pass some legislation. So anyway, it's an ordinance. So it's a ticketable sort of thing, but it's not, you can't punish it. You can't throw you in jail for wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. So anyway, they tackled this guy. Were basically just wrestling him all around on the sidewalk. And then there was a bystander that was complaining about what they were doing because it was way overreaching. And so what did they do? The cop...
Sided probably with the bystander, right?
The macho cop walks up to the bystander, grabs him around the neck, pulls him towards him, and then punches him in the face. And starts punching him in the face until he falls to the ground. And then gets on him and then like kneels on top of his head.
Wow.
And arrests him.
Wow.
That's New York City.
For interference or something? Like,
I don't know. The guy was like 25 feet, 30 feet away, so it's not like he was interfering in police operations or anything like that.
not that this is an excuse. You should never batter another human being, period. But I
Especially
can imagine
for-
they're under a lot of stress.
Especially for not wearing a mask. You're going to punch some guy in the face because he's bitching about
Well, yeah,
arresting someone else?
you're enforcing mask wearing, and then you're going to go make bodily contact with someone's bodily
And throw somebody in
fluids.
jail to where they're going to be exposed with other people in close proximity.
Yeah,
It's stupid.
it's really stupid. There's a lot that's stupid about this, but that's what happens when you allow government entities to make
And like that
decisions.
hairdresser in Texas, I guess it was in Dallas, to where she refused to close her business because she has stylists that can't pay their bills. They have kids. She has kids, apparently, I guess. And they need to feed their family. And so people need haircuts. And so she just opened up her place again. So the city arrested her. The judge basically wanted her to apologize and say that she was wrong. They would let her go if she just said that she was wrong and that the city was right.
Huh.
She refused to do that.
So where is she now?
She went to jail.
She's in jail still.
The judge threw her in jail for contempt of court.
Oh my gosh.
For not admitting that
For
the
not
government
apologizing?
for not apologizing and admitting that the government was right and she was wrong. So anyway, the lieutenant governor and the governor stepped in, and the I believe it was the Supreme Court of Texas that overruled that judge's decision.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of interesting Supreme Court cases that come out of this.
And then the lieutenant governor paid her like $10,000 fine or whatever.
Great.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Yeah, I think that people don't understand that, especially on the, I'm going to, make a very, sort of broad statement here about elite coastal people, such as myself, because, I can only have the best matcha in the mornings, so I'm pretty elite.
From the foggy mountaintops of Japan, picked by
little old ladies. Which we'll get to that in a bit.
Selecting only the baby leaves of green tea.
We'll get to that in a little while. I'm one of these coastal idiots, but not really. I still maintain my sanity. But a lot of times people, when they're sheltering at home or they have the ability to work from home, they forget the rest of the world. Like there's so many types of employment, so many different types of businesses that cannot make it right now because they depend on customers to come in contact with them.
Absolutely.
And so I really think that it's kind of has to be kind of an agreement between grown-ups that decide, if I want to go in and get exposed at a hairdressing salon, then
no one's forcing you to.
Right. I understand the argument that maybe I'm going and exposing people unwittingly to disease and perhaps accidentally killing other people. But, we just cannot shelter in place for a few more years.
No.
Like that is just not tenable.
Well,
people will die.
And the people that are living in environments like San Francisco, they may work in the tech industry or they may work in some sort of business to where they can telecommute essentially and just work online.
Great.
But
it's a luxury. They should really be thankful for that.
They can do that, but then, like you said, they forget the regular people. And there's also this viewpoint, I think, that people have conflated to where they say that businesses aren't people. How dare you help these businesses and then not help these and not give the money to these people? The reality is that those small businesses are people.
Well, they absolutely are people.
They are single parents. They are couples. They are families that run these businesses. They don't just miraculously pop the fuck up in town and just say have a storefront. There are people behind it that are leveraging risk. So a lot of these people have all of their net worth levered towards this business to keep it alive and to keep it going, and it provides for them or their entire family. And that's really what is at risk.
That's really sad. But I have a feeling, speaking of cancel culture, we're going to start seeing people cancel people because they don't wear a mask. Like I've already started seeing the president went into some factory and didn't have a mask on.
Oh, you have idiots. And of course it's this
and I'm
idiot.
like, you know what? He is, just trust me, not close to anybody there.
Yeah.
Like, please.
But then, of course, I love to harp on this idiot that we have locally, Scott Wiener. Of course, this idiot rails online talking about how people are, shouldn't wear these N95 masks that have the gaskets on them because you're polluting and putting people at risk. You're just exhaling and you're not protecting people. You're only protecting yourself. You're only filtering the air that you breathe, but then you're exhaling stuff for other people, and it's dangerous. It's radical.
It's just very, oh my gosh.
So people are trying to wear masks and be good, and they're like, oh, that's the wrong kind of mask. How dare you? Yeah.
Well, I admit that I have an N95 mask that I got for the fires. And I've now worn it several times. And so, I wouldn't be able to donate it to a hospital. But I'm afraid to wear it outside because I'm afraid of being, accosted for wearing it. So I don't wear it, which is kind of silly. I don't know.
And it's got the gasket on it.
Yeah, and it's got the gasket, which is
Wiener.
super evil. Super evil mask. So instead, I wear masks that are made by the ex-American Apparel guy who was canceled. Maybe for good reason. I don't know. But he was.
And so now it's LA Apparel, you said?
Los Angeles Apparel. Yeah. So he rebooted his company. I'm not sure the specifics about what all went down there, but he has a whole new company called Los Angeles Apparel, and everything's made in America. And they sell masks that are pretty great. So that's where I get mine from.
And there's plenty of companies that are making those too. So
Yeah.
you don't all have to wear
The shoe company
N95s.
Adams that I'm an investor in sent me a mask and it says Adams on it. I have a feeling we're going to see all kinds of really interesting masks. Hold on, I need to cough. We don't have a cough button yet. But I heard we're getting a sponsor potentially.
We are getting a sponsor, so I need to talk to him about.
Do you think he'll cover our cough button?
I don't know.
Because that's what we really need.
We just need a sponsorship solely for the cough button.
Mostly that. I mean, we kind of have everything else covered. I mean, I guess like if we wanted a special guest and we wanted to pay for them to come to our podcast in
Or
the
if we
future.
need to pay for a click farm to get us like 5,000
Yeah,
followers.
so that we could get
so we can get John McAfee.
John McAfee on. Or I don't know. I guess there are some expenses that we have that would be nice to cover with the podcast. Plus, it just makes you feel legit. Like, when you have a sponsor, it just makes you feel like you've reached this next level.
You know what Jason could do? Jason Calacanis could just like send one of his sponsors to us. Be like, I've got enough. We'll just send one over to this
He
other
won't
show.
do that.
No, of course he won't. Of course
He's
he
not
won't.
going to do that. No, yeah, he's definitely not going to do. He has a whole team of people who, work on that show and work on his like whole entity. Like Jason, in order to be Jason, he has like 20 people making him Jason.
And for
So.
this show, it's just me and you.
Yeah, it's just you and I, right? And you do most of the work. I just show up. So, so yeah, maybe we need a sponsor to help, Lee with beverages, or I don't know.
Yeah, if we have guests in, it would be nice to at least have a stocked, little fridge for guests or whatever.
Yeah, just be legit. That's really what it is. We just want to be legit. Like, because once you have a sponsor, people are listening to it and they're like, oh my gosh, somebody actually takes this seriously. Like, this is legitimate.
Well, we'll try. So I'll talk to him and see about his sponsorship and what equipment we can get.
Okay, great. I just want, a cough button.
Button.
That way, also, it allows me to like say, well, I guess I can't speak too loud because it'll be picked up on other microphones. But if we all hit the button at the same time, then I could say something. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see.
See how it works out.
So we have been delaying my rash story.
You're right. Yeah. So you were telling me that you had hitchhiked or something.
Oh,
You've
no.
got-
I've
you've gotten-
hitchhiked, but I didn't get the rash then.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought, okay.
No. So let me start with DEF CON. DEF CON 4. I went with Chris. And he talked me very last minute into going to DEF CON 4. And I worked at a telemarketing company at the time. And so I had just gotten my bonus. And my bonus was $850, which was a fortune to me at that time. And so I was so excited to go to Vegas. And we drove his Fiero to Vegas. And there's a whole other story in there about this town like practically blowing up that stopped the freeway traffic and we were stuck in the heat. That's a whole other story.
Well, the
by
whole
itself.
Fiero story was something that, we had the group podcast and
we never got to it.
Chris has to come back and talk about
Yeah,
Fiero.
he has to come back and talk about the Fiero because the Fiero story on the way back from this DEF CON trip is just is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. He's like full on MacGyver, let me tell you. But anyway, we get to DEF CON and we're so excited to stay at the Luxor because it's this gigantic pyramid with a beam of light. And Chris is obsessed with pyramids and Egyptian culture and all that stuff. So we go in and we go up to the counter and we are so excited and we're just bright-eyed and like 17 and 18 years old with cash. And we go up to the counter and we ask for a room. They will not give us one. And one, we don't have a credit card. And the other thing is we're not 21. So you can't be 18 and be an adult and stay in a casino.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yes.
right.
And at the
'Cause it's not a regular
time,
hotel.
there wasn't like the Trump casino or the Trump has like well, they don't have a casino, the Trump Hotel.
Yeah.
So they have these hotels on the Strip that don't have slot machines or any gambling, and Trump is one of them. But they didn't have anything like that. So I asked the guy behind the counter, I was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, we need a place to stay. We're going to a conference here on the Strip. we're allowed into the conference, which doesn't make sense. Like, why can't we sleep here? You know, it doesn't make any sense.
I guess maybe
completely
I guess
arbitrary.
maybe the minibar in the room.
Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So he says, well, if you head out to the strip and you head either left or right, and you drive as long as possible until you reach a hotel or motel out there, they most likely will let you stay
That's very helpful.
for cash. And I was like, okay. So Chris and I left. We get in the Fiero. We go out to Las Vegas Boulevard, and we choose, I think, right. We go right, which I think is past Mandalay Bay, and like we go out. And so we see this like little hotel called something Eights. All I remember is there's an 8. We would soon find out why it was called the Super 8 or whatever. So I sent Chris in, and he comes back and he says, well, the good news is we can stay here. But it's by the hour, which is so weird. And I went and looked at the room, and there's 8 beds in the room. And I was like, 8 beds? Like full-size beds? And he's like, no, twin beds. Like little twin beds. 8 of them. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, so there's plenty of beds. We just have to pay by the hour. And he's like, and then neither of us, we're so naive. We have no idea why you would want a hotel or motel by the hour.
Yeah.
And we certainly couldn't think of why you would need 8 beds. I still don't quite understand that. Like, maybe you're partying on the strip and you get like an orgy together and you all like,
Maybe.
it's like a sex party.
Or
What
like-
is it?
Yeah, the ultimate cheap bachelor's party maybe, and then everybody gets a prostitute of their own.
It may be.
Maybe.
Who knows? I don't know what that was all about, but it was really, really gross. So we stay there and we sleep as long as we can and get up ready. Chris is one of these people, when he's excited about something, like he'll wake up at like before the crack of dawn, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, ready to go, like rearing to go. And if you're not up, he'll leave you. So you've got to be up. Because he'll just like make sure that you're like, he'll shake you until you get up. So this was back in the time where very few people had laptops. So most people were bringing like PCs to this conference. Like
Just setting them up in the hotel.
they would just set them up at the conference. So this is DEF CON. It was DEF CON 4. I think there was maybe 100 or less people at this conference. And I don't,
So the casinos weren't taking it seriously. They're like,
No.
yeah, okay.
No,
So
this
it's
was
not-
nothing
Yeah,
then.
it's not
It
what
was nothing
not
then.
what it is now.
it literally took up one room in the
Now
Monte
they
Carlo.
will be like, oh, sure, you don't like using credit cards. We'll take cash.
Well, actually, it was 2 rooms in the Monte Carlo. So it was like one room for speaking and like a bunch of people sitting on the floor. Like, I don't even think they had enough seating for everybody. And then the other room was like the vendor room, which had one vendor and a bunch of tables and then some people selling some hardware. And that was about it. But anyway, so we go over there. We're super excited to be there. I get really nervous because I feel like a criminal at this point. Like, I'm not allowed to stay in this casino, but like, I'm 18, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm here illegally or something. Like, I felt
I'm where I'm not supposed to be.
I'm
because-
not. Yeah, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And then also there was all of these guys. There was no women, like none. Not that that's a problem because I'm used to that, but it was a little weird. I was like, there's all these guys, you know. So I hid under a table. I'll get to the rash eventually. This is building up to the rash. I hid under this table and watched the whole, anything I could understand. Keep in mind, I was not into computer programming and stuff like that then, or engineering of any sort. And so I just had my hacker friends, and so I would like watch what they were saying, like underneath the little like draping thing that goes over the table. And there's a whole bunch of drama that year involving like a guy that dressed as a vampire, who I would later discover his name is Pete Shipley. And then he had like this girl who was wearing practically nothing, who was also a vampire. And then some woman from some magazine called Gray Area or Gray Matter or something. I don't know. There was lots of drama.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? And
Why
I couldn't
wouldn't?
make sense of the drama because I didn't have the backstory. But I was like, wow, these people like have a lot of infighting, and they're so small. Like, it's just, you know, so much drama going on here. But anyway, Chris comes up to me towards the end of the day. He's super excited. And he says, Cyan, we don't have to go back to the Crazy 8 motel tonight. I found a place for us to stay. So get this. I met this guy, and he has a 2-room, like, bedroom, or 2-bed room. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Not 2 bedrooms, 2 beds in a room.
Like a double queen.
Double queen, exactly. And we can stay with him. He says we can take the other bed. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. Great. So we meet up with this guy, and this guy is like really high strung. He talks really fast, and he talks like, I mean, he was really interesting. I'll just put it that way. So we're trying to go to sleep at night, and he is like listening to radio and listening to people's cell phone conversations. So back then you could actually just scan, for conversations and find them and just listen to them. And so he was like, I think I'm listening to someone book a prostitute. I think I'm listening to somebody brokering drugs. Oh my God, listen to this. And he just would not go to sleep. I'm like, oh my God, does this guy ever sleep? And the answer is no, he does not sleep. So Chris and I finally go to sleep. The next day, he wants to take us to breakfast somewhere before we head back to DEF CON. And so we get in his car. We go out to Las Vegas Boulevard, and right before he makes a turn, he's at a light. He pulls out a crack pipe and starts smoking crack. And I'm like, what the? Because first of all, it has a very unique smell. And so I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, don't mind me. I have ADD. I couldn't sleep all night last night, and so like I need a little bit of crack to calm down. And I'm like, okay, this guy just needs a little bit of crack to calm down. All right, whatever. And he drove just fine. So this was my first sort of like, maybe crack isn't what I think it is. Because he actually did calm down. Yeah. And he became really slow because he'd been like hyper, like a mile a minute before. And then he slowed down to a normalish speed and got kind of sleepy. So I was really like, maybe he does have ADD. That's really weird. Okay.
It's like, is that what people take for ADD is crack? Okay.
Yeah, maybe. The guy was nice enough. And this just goes to show like kind of what a weird, crazy, idiotic kid I was.
Just naive.
Naive.
Maybe not crazy.
Very trusting. I was very trusting. More so than now. So he gave me his phone number. And when we got back to Arizona, I called him and we had a couple conversations. And he said, hey, I really want you to come out to this thing called the Exotic Erotic Ball at the Cow Palace.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's the biggest rave. So keep in mind, I went to raves then. Like, I love dancing. It was my favorite thing to do. I would dance like 3 to 4 times a week. And so he told me about this massive rave. It sounded so cool. And it had like a really good lineup of people. And I was like, well, I've never like gone to San Francisco. I don't, I think I've only flown at this point maybe once in my life. And so he says, don't worry, I'll buy you a plane ticket. You can stay at my mom's house. I live with my mom. And I'll just take care of everything. And I was like, guy's willing to buy me a plane ticket, buy me tickets to this thing, and take care of everything. And then I explained to him, I'm like, well, you do know I have a boyfriend. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Don't care. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I fly out to meet him. And he picks me up. And again, just a mile a minute. Like, same type of stuff that was going on.
Back in Vegas.
Yeah, and I was just like, maybe this wasn't the best idea. So we do go to the Exotic Erotic Ball, and he ditches me, actually. He, like, ditches me. He just, like, goes off dancing and doing his own thing. I think he truly wanted just companionship. Like, I don't think he actually wanted anything from me. Which is really, really sweet, actually. So he ran off, and so I just found this, like, speaker and just danced in front of the speaker and had a great time. And then he finally found me, and he said, hey, we should probably go.
Wait. And what is this erotic ball?
Oh, the Exotic Erotic Ball is not just a rave.
It's not a rave. Okay.
No. It is a fetishy event in which people are having sex around you, and people are taking photographs of it. and there are booths with all sorts of sex toys and like
So
all
it's
sorts of
basically
things.
just a big swinger party,
Kinda,
like a BDSM swinger party.
kind of. It's part that, and then it's part just dancing.
Oh.
It's a little bit of all of it, and some of it is kind of interesting, and some of it is really not.
So
It's
this,
like Burning Man.
so this guy smoking crack invites you to
A
an
sex
orgy party.
Yeah, like an orgy rave.
Okay,
An orgy rave.
totally normal.
Yeah, totally normal. Which actually, okay, pinpoint this. I'm gonna have to tell you about this time that a guy actually tricked me on a date into going to a sex party. We'll get to that in a moment. And
okay.
Lucas had to rescue me. So, anyway, we leave, and out of nowhere, I just start itching like crazy. Like it felt like my skin was on fire. I was like, "Whoa, what is going on?" And I figured, well, maybe it's just the sweat, right? It's just the sweat.
Like heat rash, just
Heat
swampy.
rash,
Yeah.
I danced too much, whatever. And so we go back to his mom's place, and I'm staying in this spare room that's adjoined by a bathroom to his room. And he leaves me alone, and I feel safe. I'm like, I don't have to stab this guy in the eyes. Like, he's not going to try to do anything. And he says, well, take a shower, do whatever you need. And so I take a shower, and I look down, and across my abdomen, there is a rash, like a massive rash.
Just wrapping around you.
Just wrapping around. And I'm like, oh my God. And it hurts so bad, and it itches, and it's the kind of itch that like only goes away when you itch. Like you must itch it. Like if you don't itch it,
But then you're scratching it until you go raw.
exactly. So I could barely sleep that night because of this quote unquote heat rash. So the next day we get up and we're going to hang out in San Francisco before he takes me back to the airport. And at some point I just can't handle it anymore. I'm like, can you stop by Walgreens? I need to go to Walgreens, because I was just like, I need some calamine lotion or something. And he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have this really weird rash that just like appeared last night. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. So we stop by Walgreens. We pick up some lotion. I put it all over my body, and that helps a little bit. But interestingly, this rash only hurt in the evening. Like, it was annoying during the day, but extremely irritating at night. And I thought that was really bizarre too, like only at night. So we eventually part ways. I get on the plane, I head back, and on the plane it starts like killing me. It's on fire again. I get back home, and my boyfriend also has a rash. And I said, wait, you have a rash? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, when did it start? And he's like, a couple days ago. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I thought about it. And he and I were down on Mill Avenue in Tempe, and this homeless guy that we'd been hanging out with, we both hugged him. And he'd been itching himself and complaining about, itching. And I didn't realize you could get this thing called scabies.
Little bugs.
So I go to the emergency room, and all of that backstory is actually relevant to this. I know that's weird, but you have to hear the whole story to understand the whole thing. I gave that poor guy that I met in Las Vegas, most likely I gave him, and probably his whole family, scabies. So I go to the ER, and they won't even let me in. Because, basically, I go up to the counter, the triage place, and I tell them, and they're like, pull up your shirt, and I pull it up, and they're like, go outside. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, go outside? Because I don't have insurance at this time. And I could barely, I just paid my car insurance, but I didn't pay for health insurance.
Yeah.
And so they come outside, and they write me this prescription and just, shove it in my face. And I was like, well, do I need to pay for anything? And they're like, no, just go. Just leave. Don't come inside. Don't touch anybody. Just follow the instructions and just go. and they were like, follow it to a T. And I was like, they were like, this is highly contagious. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I go home, and I cover myself with this lotion, and then gather up all the clothes, and wash them all. And we try to sanitize everything. And then we just sit there naked on a chair watching television, covered in this silverish lotion from head to toe. At some point, some friends came over to check on us, And here's what's really interesting. A few days later, they came down with scabies. So it ripped through my entire friend circle. It was horrendously. It was so bad. It was so, so bad. And
And then you felt bad because everybody got scabies because of you.
yes, yes. And I felt so bad. And I wanted to call that guy and talk to him, but I was terrified. I was mortified. He never called me again.
Of course not. You infested his whole house with scabies.
He never called me. He never reached out. He never looked for me or anything. And I had his number and I could have called him, but I was just like, what am I going to say? Like, what do I do? There's nothing.
Sorry that you had to fumigate your house.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. Oh my God.
Sorry you had to burn your bed.
Yeah. I can just imagine him all cracked out, covered in scabies. I mean, poor man. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we went back to DEF CON after that and we never ran into him again. He didn't even come back to DEF CON. He's probably just like, I'm staying away from scabies, girl.
He was traumatized.
He was so traumatized. He just never wanted to return.
Is that how you got into skin stuff or dermatology, or was that later?
It was earlier than that. So I have this weird, I mean, it's not healthy, and I'm sure someone listening to this understands because it's common. It's not uncommon, but I think it mostly started when I became a teenager and became aware of pimples. And then like I got one. And then I was like, what the fuck is that? Horrible thing that's like growing on my back or something. Like, what is that? And then I became obsessed with them, and that's not healthy. But then I also became obsessed, and I have a feeling that a lot of dermatologists actually start out this way. Like, had I gone to med school, like, I would be absolutely, without a doubt, a dermatologist. I am obsessed with rashes and skin disorders, and I love reading about them, and I love watching, like, removal type videos that are on YouTube of all kinds, like from earwax to you name it. And, which a lot of people would probably find pretty gross, but I find fascinating. It does not gross me out at all. So when someone has like a skin problem, I'm like, I light up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my chance to be the amateur dermatologist. So I have diagnosed a couple of rashes correctly, and that makes me really excited because rashes can be difficult. If you don't see a volume of rashes, like you're not at a hospital or Kaiser or something where you're turning over like 10 patients a day, you're most likely not going to be able to diagnose a rash properly. So, but no, I diagnosed a friend with shingles. I was like, oh, those are shingles. And it was correct. It was my first time ever seeing it in person too. And then I also diagnosed scarlet fever. So that's a rare one.
Yeah, I'm not even sure people really still get scarlet fever.
They do. They do. It's an
I haven't really
allergy.
heard of it.
It's almost like an allergy to strep throat. So what happens is your body has a reaction to the viral shedding and develops a
it's-
rash.
Okay.
And it's actually can be incredibly deadly,
So it's like
or it used to be.
autoimmune sort of response?
Yeah, and the
Or
only way to
just-
treat it is antibiotics. Like you have to get antibiotics fast, because it develops into an infection.
And you get sepsis or something.
Yeah, yeah. So, diagnose that one.
Maybe you redeemed yourself for infecting your all of your friends with scabies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had other issues, but I don't know if we want to get into all the critters that I've had in my life. People usually are not proud of this sort of thing, but like, I wear it with no shame. I hugged a homeless guy. What can I say? It's what happens.
But you haven't since.
No.
Yeah.
No, I will not
Because you don't want scabies again.
I will not make physical contact with homeless people as a result of, one, being homeless myself, and two, hugging this guy and making that mistake. So homeless people, they don't mean to do this. I mean, it's just kind of circumstantial, really, of their living environment. But
Yeah.
they can often carry diseases and all kinds of critters. So lice, you name it. None of those are deadly, but man, they sure suck. You do not want scabies. It sucks so bad.
Yeah, I've
and you can see them.
Just little bugs crawling.
They're so tiny, but if you look close enough, you see them. They
It's like a
have like
little
these little
speck.
hooks, and they like burrow into your skin. And what they're doing is they're burrowing and laying eggs. So they're basically,
And then they come out at night.
they come out at night.
So it's kind of like a bed bug.
Yeah, comes out at night. I've never had bed bugs. That's the one thing I have not definitely had. I've had lice.
Yeah, well, only
Everyone's really had lice though, right? Just about.
I've never had lice.
Yeah, I had it. Caught it from a kid.
Yeah, I never had it. It's one of those things.
They don't like me that much.
I think there was in elementary school. I think there was like one classmate that had lice, but yeah, never had it myself.
Yeah.
And the only time I ran into bed bugs, I never got it, but it was that girlfriend that stole my Star Wars DVDs.
Oh.
When her bed was just sitting out in her living room, and I'm like, that's weird. You have a 2-bedroom apartment.
So I think I've told you that when I was a young teenager, I was very promiscuous. I just was, and there's a whole backstory as to why, or how I justify it anyway.
Rebellion, sort of thing.
No, it wasn't really rebellion. It was, I thought I had a lot of really weird preconceived notions about what being an adult meant. That started pretty early, and I thought you were supposed to like fall in love with someone and live happily ever after. I kind of just like fell into that whole thing. And part of it was because of watching movies. It was like I didn't have a really great role model with my mom. And, you know, she married multiple times and we rolled through fathers.
Yeah.
And so the only other relationship I had to look to was my grandfather and grandmother who didn't share a room. So, and never touched each other. So I had this thing where you'd watch movies and like people would have passionate sex and like it seemed so exciting. So when I finally was able to do it, it was not exciting. I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like there's nothing redeeming about this situation. So I decided that I was going to get down to the bottom of it and figure it out.
It's like, why am I not enjoying this?
Yeah, why am I not enjoying this? Like, is it me? Is it them?
Something broken.
Is something broken? Exactly. So I went through this whole I'm gay for a period of time. But I couldn't get any girl to hook up with me. So that didn't work out so well. So I went back to guys and I don't know, I was a menace. I just like, if a guy couldn't make me happy, then I would be like, next. Like literally. So anyway, this goes back to another critter story, which I'll tell you. So one day I'm at work at Zibity, and one of my employees sends me an email with the subject line WTF or something like that, and it has an attachment in it, and it's a voicemail that an ex-boyfriend sent me from a long time ago. And this ex-boyfriend starts going on and on and on about how I gave him crabs. And how he's going to expose it to the whole world.
And this is like 10 years later? 12?
Oh, this is a lot longer than that. So
15?
like, I am 35 when I get this message, like 34, 35. Maybe 33, around 33. And we dated when we were like 14, 15.
Wow. He's holding on to it.
Yeah, he was holding on to it. Anyway, he's
like, I'm going to get you after 17 years.
There's a little more complication to that story than just that. I mean, it involves, he was a drug dealer and he got caught for drug dealing. And there's a whole other side story to this. But anyway, regardless, that's not what he was leaving a message about. Was not about the drug dealing. So he's like, I'm going to expose to the whole world. Just wait until they find out that you gave me scabies. And I'm like, not scabies, sorry. Crabs. The other critter. And I was like, oh my God. And I thought about the timing. And I did get crabs from my promiscuous time with boys. And in all fairness, a boy gave me crabs, okay? Some boy did that to me.
It didn't just miraculously appear.
No, it didn't miraculously appear. One of them gave them to me. That's how this works. Anyway, so And it doesn't matter if you use protection or whatever, you can get crabs. Like, you just get them. And so I just started laughing because I was like, oh my God, what the fuck ever? Like, tell the world. I don't care.
It's like, that's all you've got.
That's all you've got? I did reach out to him and I tried to make sense with him about his situation, and I wasn't sure why I was top of mind with him at the time.
Probably just got out of prison. And he's like, I haven't seen anybody, but I do remember one name.
Yeah, that fucking bitch.
I'm going to look her up. I'm going to look her up.
Fuck her.
She gave me crabs and then I went to prison. Maybe that was the start of the downfall.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the downturn.
Yeah. I did actually Google search him, and he has been arrested multiple times for some pretty scary things. So hopefully he doesn't show up in my life. But if he does, then I'll deal with him. But it certainly, hopefully, doesn't come all the way out to get me because of some crabs, right? Like,
No, I think it's probably died down by now.
yeah, I hope so. Well, maybe I should be more concerned. I don't know. Anyway, at some point I did settle down, and then I had really long relationships with people, and I stopped doing that. So
Yeah.
I realized it was fairly unhealthy and not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. It's risky.
It's very risky.
It's risky.
Yeah, it's very risky. And luckily he's the only ex-boyfriend that has kind of come out of the woodwork to say something to me. Oh yeah, fun times. I sure could pick him. But yeah, he was a drug dealer, and he got caught, and he went to jail, and that was the end of our relationship, actually. So keep in mind, I had not really seen him like after this. He claims that he stopped by the record store I worked at to like talk to me before he was like sent off to some, I don't know, some place in Colorado or something.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that, but I honestly don't remember much after he went to jail. Like, basically, that was the end of our relationship. It was done.
Well, that would be a good reason to end it.
For all I know, he gave me crabs.
Could have. And just blamed you.
Yeah, maybe he just blamed me.
That might be the case.
I don't understand, like, shaming people and blaming people for stuff like that, though. Like, it's not like you meant to do it.
Yeah.
It's not like he didn't know that, like, I was with other guys. Like, it's not like it wasn't all up front. So, whatever. I think we need to take the stigma out of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about blaming stuff, it's kind of also a weird topic, because then you give somebody a certain amount of trust, and then if something happens, you're like, wait, are you lying to me? Mm-hmm. So you have that doubt. Kind of like with an ex-girlfriend. I ended up getting a yeast infection, and then I'm like,
well, we're going we're going there.
and then I'm like, oh shit, it's like, is this herpes? I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, been careful so long. It's like, and now this, and then yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, so for anyone listening to this,
she's like, I'm not, the whole thing of like, I'm not lying or whatever, and that sort of thing.
Well, here's the thing that's really sad. Some people are asymptomatic carriers of all kinds of things, and so, unfortunately, we'll get real for a second about STDs. So, there are people that like literally freak out on their spouses and their partners because they suddenly come down with herpes, or they display the symptoms of herpes, and it's interesting because their partner could have had it the whole time.
Yeah.
And some people are asymptomatic
and
characters.
Like dormant.
Actually, a lot of people, and it's just dormant.
It's just dormant for years, and then it just pops up in a time of stress
or it'll just
whatever.
Pop up, and then what will happen is people are just like, "You cheated on me, you're a liar," and like, there's just no way to like
say, I think I've had it for years.
Well, they might not even know.
Yeah, exactly.
They might not even know, and so I think it's just a lack of understanding of how some of that stuff works, unfortunately.
And talking about asymptomatic stuff, I mean, that's one of the problems with like even COVID. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are running around asymptomatic.
Way to bring it round.
Asymptomatic. So people are, carrying and shedding RNA, and they don't even know that they have it. Mm-hmm. And so, it's one of the dangerous things. That's just what viruses are.
Well, typhoid Mary.
Yeah, she was asymptomatic, and
Yeah.
then the city kept trying to shut her down and arresting her or fining her or whatever they were doing because she kept preparing food and sending stuff and kept just getting everybody sick with typhoid fever.
Yeah. So there are some people.
And she was never sick herself.
Yeah, there's lots of people who say, "Oh, I never get sick," and it's not true. Actually, you might have been sick and never know.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's actually good for people to say they've never been sick. I think the right thing to say is, "I never feel sick." If you want to be accurate, then that's probably the more accurate statement. I never feel sick. Because some people say I don't get sick, and I'm like, well, you might.
Well, I haven't had the flu since 2003 or 4, so
Yeah.
it's been a while. But I've been around it. I don't know why.
Why you've been around it?
No,
Or-
I don't know why. Like, I haven't gotten sick. I've been around plenty of it. So it's either me and my obsessive hand washing, or
It's probably your obsessive
or
hand
maybe
washing.
I developed a good immunity to it. I don't know.
I feel really embarrassed right now that I just told all my rash stories, but I'm happy that they're out there. I just hope that, like, Scott's mom doesn't listen to this. That's the one thing I don't want.
Well, I mean, it's in the past. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's in the past, Debbie. Please don't listen to this. She thinks so highly of me. I don't want that to change.
And now she's like, you know what? She was out there flitting around, taking rides with people smoking crack, going to sex parties.
Oh, if she only knew. Yeah, no, I've calmed down a lot as I got
I would
older.
say. I
Yeah.
haven't seen anybody smoking crack around you.
No. And that's not the only time I've been in a car with someone smoking crack. Like, I think I told you about, there's a guy that I gave a ride to his crack dealer. I didn't know that's where he was going because, again, I'm so naive. He needed a ride. It was this homeless guy named Mr. Wonderful, and who sold the poetry on the streets, and he lit up in the back of the car. So that's actually how I knew what crack smelled like and why I could identify it the second time I encountered it.
Did that also calm him down?
Mr. Wonderful?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Mr. Wonderful was calm. He was just the sweetest guy. Like, he was just beautiful and sweet. So, I don't know. I think crack gets a bad rep. It's funny to laugh about it, but, like,
Well, of course it's had a bad rap.
I think it's got a really bad rep.
People get cracked. That's why we have the saying, you get cracked out. And then you act crazily and erratically and commit crimes and stuff like that.
So, what's
It's-
worse, methamphetamine or crack?
In what sense?
Behavioral. Like, how it causes people to behave. I've never tried either.
I don't know. I worked in the penal system, and
So, based on your observation of people coming in, cracked out or methed out, like,
I think
what was worse?
I think probably crack would be more violent and more erratic, because I think in methamphetamine there are times of euphoria, and like people being like very sexually active and sexually charged. So they're probably not going to be crazy and violent all the time. But I mean, if you just look at the decades of gang crime and all sorts of stuff that have been committed on the streets on crack, then I think crack is probably the worst one out of the two.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody act crazy on crack. I've only seen 2 people on crack, to be honest with you. But
There were plenty of people in my lockdown facility and administrative segregation that were there for committing crimes on crack, murdering people, robbing and shooting and killing people. And then they blame it on the drugs, which I guess, but you're an adult. You smoked the drugs and then you did crazy shit.
right, I've always been a firm believer that whatever choices you make, including taking drugs or drinking alcohol or whatever, if it leads to a bad outcome, it's your fault.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like those people that say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I was blacked out. I was drinking. I was blacked out. I've drunk a fuckload in my life. And I remember every single second of it.
I cannot claim the same thing. I have blacked
It's
out
like
once.
the idea of blacking out. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I mean, you can still moderate yourself and control yourself at
Well,
some
there's a
extent.
reason I don't drink, really. It's because I blacked out once. I drank myself when I was like 14, 15. Again, 14, 15 years old. I was out of control. There's nobody looking after me then. So It was just like party time. I got really, really drunk because I tried to impress this guy and make him think that I could drink him under the table, but I was like 90 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't. And he drank beer every day, and I did not. So it was really stupid, but it ended up with me blacking out and not knowing what happened the rest of the evening.
Was that on the camping trip?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
okay.
was the camping trip where I vomited all over him and told him how much I love someone else. It was great.
What a night.
What a night.
And you like wandered off in the woods?
Yeah. I wandered off in the woods, or he took me out into the woods. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it ended with him abandoning me on the ground,
Covered in vomit.
covered in vomit, and it was warm outside because it was the summer, so I wasn't cold. And there were no extra sleeping bags, so like, because I vomited all over the sleeping bag, and I vomited over his. He didn't have one either, so it was just like, it was not good.
Way to run the trip, Cyan.
Yeah. So when I woke up and I went back to camp, everybody's like, "There she is." And I was like, "What did I do?" And then they told me about all of the stuff I did, and I have no recollection of it. And that bothered me so much that I decided to never drink beer again. So I have had alcohol since then. I don't really enjoy it. And then if I get too drunk, I regret it later anyway. So I am a fun drunk, but it's just not good. It's not good for me or anyone else. I get really, really like random when I'm drunk. And I love doing random things like, I don't know. You'll just have to ask friends. Like running through grocery stores, buying stuffed rabbits for no good reason whatsoever, and heading to the beach with them, you know.
Like Easter rabbits? Or
Yeah,
something?
Easter rabbits. Just random stuff.
Yeah, I've never had any of those issues.
Yeah, dancing on tables, you know,
Like,
that kind of stuff.
I just don't, I don't know. I can be really, really drunk, but then never lose consciousness or knowing what's going on. Always know what's going on.
Not I. That's why it's best I don't do it, because later on I'm just like, why did I do all that stuff? But everybody's like, oh, it's so fun when you're drunk. As a matter of fact, I have a nickname called Party Hat Cyan. And so when I have a couple of drinks, I become Party Hat Cyan.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
But talking about drinking too, we had a few drinks over at the golf course.
We did. I actually
We got to do something normal,
I brought a little thermos of pear liqueur.
which is really good. It tastes like Christmas.
Yeah, it tastes like Christmas.
So good.
So good. And it doesn't really get you drunk. It's like, it's just tasty. Maybe like a little buzz or something, but nothing serious. So, and then you brought some Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
We were very classy. You even brought some cups.
Uh-huh.
So it was
Brought a
very
couple
nice.
little cups.
Yep.
And you had some snacks because you brought your picnic basket,
Yeah.
which you love picnic baskets.
I love picnic baskets.
And that was one of the new
so
ones
much.
that you got in.
Yes.
So it came in handy.
I want to have a party once we're all out of shelter in place or can meet up again in parks and have picnics and give all my friends picnic baskets that I have decorated and made. But I'm already having a hard time because I'm developing like a love for every single one of them. So
You'll just have to pick out your favorite, like, two.
it's going to be hard.
Like, favorite two. You can have a big one and then a smaller one for different occasion. And then just have to let the rest run free.
It's going to be hard, Lee. I love my picnic
Because
baskets.
I know you want to decorate them and then send them off in the world. So
Yeah. It's tough.
But-
I will do it. It's just tough.
But it was nice getting out to the golf course.
It was so nice. I felt human again.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, and I'm sure everybody knows this because they're in the middle of this too, is we have kind of lost touch with what kind of really makes us human. We are social creatures. Even the most introverted among us probably wants and craves a little interaction.
You have to.
And I just felt so good just sitting out there in the grass. And after we golfed we didn't golf, we drove balls. Sorry.
Yeah, we went to the driving
We are
range.
not going to golf until they reach some sort of level of sanity.
Yeah. Or we can find a place outside of town.
Yeah, where we can share a golf cart.
Yeah.
Because we've been quarantining in place with each other.
Yeah,
like,
it
it doesn't
doesn't-
make any
it's
sense that we
stupid.
can't share a golf cart.
You have to stay 6 feet part from people and then drive different carts. And if you have kids, I guess you just walk the course because you can't have them driving a cart.
Yeah.
It's just really stupid.
Yeah. I mean, they probably shouldn't be driving carts anyway, but they should be on your cart.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. As if your kid's going to be somewhere else and hasn't been around you anyway.
Right. Have they been quarantining someplace else?
Yeah. It's
Where have they been?
I just picked up my kid. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen my kid in weeks. I just picked them up.
So idiot.
Whose kid is that?
That's government for you.
Oh, it's just so silly.
But I mean, they were cool about it at the golf course, like with the driving range. I just didn't like that we got stuck on the iron side to where we could
Yeah.
only use irons. I really wanted to use my woods, but
You did use the wood. I saw you.
I used it one time.
And then you shot it way over the fence.
Like it was a hybrid. It wasn't even like a 3-wood. And then I shot it. I hit it so far, it just went straight over the fence and off into the 10th green. And I'm like, oops. Like, I'm going to go back to the irons.
Yeah, so I don't get caught.
It's like, I don't feel like getting booted out right now. I still have half a bucket of balls.
Yeah.
But I did win $25.
You did.
I was really happy about that.
Yeah.
On the 4th shot.
Lee made a bet that he could hit this golf ball into a can.
Yeah, there's a little can about 25, 30 yards away. It's just a small little metal barrel. It's probably 1.5 feet wide, 2 feet wide, something like that. So
I was impressed.
yeah, I was using my little lob wedge. It's really easy to control if you can hit it right. Sometimes I blade the ball and it drives me nuts, but I try not to do that.
What is blading the ball?
So you have the...
Well, I guess he's doing some stuff that's visual that might not make sense.
It's the visual. I'll explain it. So
Okay.
you have the face of an iron. It's on an angle, right?
Okay.
So you want to hit it right here in the middle of the face of the club. Blading has to do with the ball position, pretty much, and where you are swinging. So you want to hit it in the face, but if you blade it, you're going to hit it with the bottom of the blade. You're going to hit it with the bottom, and it's not going to have any loft, and it's just going to hit that really hard, heavy part right on the corner, and it's going to shoot straight off. So your ball will just go 50 yards somewhere you don't want it to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's bad. You
It's
don't
just
get
bad.
you don't get any loft because you can't get it up in the air. So yeah.
Well, I think people think that my golfing is pretty funny. I did have this memory the other day, though, when I was talking to Karen about my ex-boyfriend, Ryan. We were together like 6-7 years, and he is just definitely a character. But he's a punk kid, and he was like a squatter punk too. But he would dress up in the craziest plaid outfits and go to the driving range with his friends. And he would beg me to go with him, and I was just like, why on earth?
It's like I would never join
I would
that.
never.
No,
like,
I don't want to be around those types of people.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I was like, and he's like, come on. He's like, part of the fun is making fun of all of them. Like they're deeply uncomfortable with us when we show up. And he's like, it's so great. You just like pay money like the rest of them, and you go out there and make an ass out of yourself and bring beer. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I swore up and down for years and years and years I would never go golfing. I would never watch golfing. I would never give it on a golfing cart. I would never give it the time of day.
It's like, oh, this is such a stupid game. You're just
So
hitting a
stupid.
ball into a hole, and
And now I'm obsessed.
yeah, it happens. It happens. Growing up, like around people that went to country clubs. I went to country clubs for swimming and tennis and stuff, but I didn't play golf. I didn't like the mentality of people just being so snobby and thinking they're like super wealthy or celebrities or whatever in the town, and just feeling better than other people. And I didn't want to be around that sort of, mentality, and I didn't want to be a snob. So I just stayed away from golf. I didn't know that it's not like that everywhere.
Yeah,
I just
right.
assumed that all the golf courses were like, oh, these snobby pricks with their golf carts, blah, blah, blah.
There are
And I just
definitely
didn't
snobby
want to be
pricks.
around it. But
There's like total D-bags out there. I've
But most
encountered
people-
some of them, but most of them
but
are
most
great.
people are out there really cool.
Yeah, they're super
So,
cool.
Yeah. Now, still some of the courses are shitty, kind of like one here in the city on the western side, to where they're like really pedantic about rules and I guess monitor you and chase you or whatever. I don't like that sort of stuff. That's part of the old problem. And also like the way that you can't dress. They want you to dress a certain way. Golf is not a growing sport.
Right.
Okay? It's contracting. because people don't want to have to dress up in fucking polos and wear, certain clothes just to fit in so you can go play a game. So, yeah.
I like the clothes. I like the polos. So I have a ridiculous amount of polos.
But also the
and I
thing
like
is, like, a
them.
lot of courses, like, especially if you're a woman, some places won't let you golf if you're wearing shorts. They want you to wear long pants. And so there's like this whole dress code, and it's different from place to place. And it's just stupid.
I say
if,
phooey to that.
If you're in like Florida,
You don't want to wear pants.
you don't want to wear pants when it's humid and direct sun. It's like, no, just wear some
Yeah.
shorts. So, they're a little more lenient about it, but there still are places that are just trying to hold on to some old legacy that doesn't exist anymore with golf.
Well, people want it to shrink because they want to have fewer people.
And that's another thing
Play.
too. They think that that's a solution, but the reality is if there aren't enough people, enough interest, there's not enough money, and you're not going to have that course anymore unless
Right.
it's a
They'll have to
really
jack up the
expensive.
fees. It'll be
Unless it's a really expensive private course.
Yeah.
So
I did like playing on a private course, I must admit. I got spoiled the very first time.
it's not like that in reality.
No, it's not. And I always think back at that.
You have to let people play through if you're playing too slow, which is just part of the game. But
I also really, really hate being paired up with strangers. Like, hate it. But whatever. I think it'll improve my game. So I just kind of have to deal with it.
either that or just get a party of four to go every time.
Right. Well, the other thing you can do is just book out the other two and just pretend you have four.
You can.
So
They don't
just
care as
pay-
long
they
as they
don't
get
care.
paid.
Yeah, they don't
They
care.
don't care.
So I asked them if I could do that, and they were like, "Hell yeah, you can do that. We don't care."
Or you can just bring two more people and just
Or
hang
bring
out.
two
Yeah.
more people you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because last time Daniel and I played, we were paired up with this elderly couple, and they were nice enough. They just were very, very slow and not particularly good. And I'm okay with them not being good because I'm not good either.
Newsflash: most people aren't good at golf.
Yeah, so I'm not good either. But it was really frustrating that they like strived for perfection and kept dropping a ball until they got something they were happy with. And
That's not really. how you
it
play
slowed
golf.
us down so much that we had people behind us just backing up. So it was not a good scene.
Well, what you do with that is you just split off. You just run off.
We tried to split off. They were just like really into hanging out.
I mean,
with
according
us.
to golf, if you lose your ball, you've got 5 minutes to find it. And if you don't, just play through. You just have to drop another ball and then play it, take a penalty shot. Because, yeah, you can't spend 20 minutes looking for balls hidden off in bushes and shit because it just slows everything down. That's why they sell golf balls in big packages.
Right. Yeah, because you just drop one and keep going.
Just drop a ball. You might throw away 9 or so a game, but whatever.
Right.
It's nothing in the world.
Yeah, well, they knew where their ball was. They just didn't like where it went. It's not that they lost it.
Oh.
They weren't good enough to lose their ball. I'll just put it that way.
But it is really fun, and I'm glad that I learned it 5 years ago. I guess it's been 5 years, 2015.
You're a good instructor, too. You're good.
Well, I got really obsessed with it. Like, you think you're obsessed, you're really, like, I went deep. I was looking at the physics and everything on how balls react, and then just, I was getting a little crazy with it to where I was obsessively. So what I would do is I wanted to make sure that my balls were perfectly balanced and that they somehow a reject didn't get in there. So I would put my golf balls in a plastic tub and then spin them around. And if they kept spinning without having a high spot, then I would use them. And if they had a high spot, then I would just throw them away.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty intense.
Because I didn't want a little air bubble or anything in there to like throw it off because it would change the weight. So when you're putting, if it changes the weight enough, then it can pull your putt off a little bit, and then you won't hit it straight.
That's pretty intense.
So
That's like PGA stuff.
I got a little crazy with it for a little bit, but then I got better.
That is pretty
I
crazy.
stopped obsessing over it.
Well, I think today, I think today's a short podcast.
Yeah, it's fine. We're already over an hour. So
Are we
we're
over an hour?
hour,
Okay, so do
3
we
minutes.
do I have to choose the code word?
I didn't pick one. Oh, talking about code words, we did give away a gift card last time
Nice.
to Supunkucha.
Nice. They will love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to send it out. Let me see what the guy's name was. It was a record store here in San Francisco. Was one of our listeners.
Does he want us to say his
So
name?
I don't care. It's Dark Entries Records.
Dark Entries Records,
Yeah, so
okay.
people know that we have a winner. So we'll be sending that out. We have
Nice.
a lot of other stuff to send out, so
Maybe our unofficial sponsor will be Dark Entries Records.
maybe so. Never know.
This show is not brought to you by.
So what's your code word for today?
My code word is camera. Hashtag camera.
Hashtag camera if you watched it or you listened all the way through.
Yeah, if you listened all the way through, it's hashtag camera. There is no prize for this. It's just lets
Just-
me know that
just-
you actually made it. And
Just to see which one of our tens of listeners actually listens all the way
listens
through.
to all the way through. We started doing this in the first podcast or whatever, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I think it was like Baby Yoda or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since then, like we do it. It's
And then a
just
few
thing.
people will comment. It's just fun to see.
Yeah, it's just fun to see. And it proves that they listen to some part. And sometimes we put it in the middle of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always at the end, so you can't just fast forward to the end and get the hashtag.
But it is kind of fun giving away the gift cards too. So
Yeah, so maybe we'll do more of that.
find some businesses that we know support and see
And
about
maybe next week we'll have a sponsor.
that. Maybe.
We shall see.
And again,
We
if
have to frame our $1 bill.
absolutely, it's over here.
All right, cool.
And so if you do want to sponsor, just let us know. Just reach out.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Your bleed jewels, your comms, few terabytes of that strong. Through copper, through fiber, through air gaps in MacGyver. These packets relentless, they gum it up like the dentist. No access, molasses when these bots in practice. You tied up, we fired up, so respect. You tied up, we fired up, so respect. This upstream is so brutal. The CNC stay brutal. We got packets on packets on packets on packets on
Packets on packets on packets on packets. Got packets on packets on packets on packets on packets on packets. Got packets on packets on packets on packets on packets on packets.